Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and I'll be your host. And today we're going to talk about the best way to travel with your children as digital nomads with my guest, Mauro Repacci. Mauro, welcome to the show.
Hi, Becky. Thank you for having me. Really a pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you as well because we're going to talk about something I think a lot of people wonder about, and they think this might be their biggest obstacle to traveling, and that's having kids already. And you're thinking, where do we go to school? How can we really make this work as a full-time thing? So we're going to cover that today.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and first I'd love to start by hearing more about your background, Madhu. What is your connection with the digital nomad world? How did you start on your digital nomad journey?
Yeah, so for me to address that, I'll just start with my life like early on. So I was born in São Paulo, Brazil, so very big city in South America. And during university, I had the chance to travel and live in different parts of the world, sometime in the US, sometime in Europe, sometime in Canada. Ended up immigrating to Montreal. And during my first few years, I started two companies there. The first one was tech B2C company that helped people find their neighborhood when they move to a new city. And my second one was a fintech. So after exiting my startups, I was living in Canada for 15 years. And like during the previous years, like because I had flexible work, I was able to go away, especially in the winter. Who's knows Canadian winter is long and it's very cold. So many people want to be out of there, and they have this whole population of snowbirds that leave Canada for like 4 or 5 months per year, and it's never been a reality for people to have work. But because I had my startups and it was super flexible, so I always would go away for 1 or 2 months, somewhere warm, back to Brazil or Costa Rica or the Caribbean. And then I had kids. And then I'm like looking at my life and I'm like, wow. And then I had two more kids. So with three kids, we were looking to stay in Canada for another 15 to 18 years that we are only allowed to travel during spring break, Christmas, and like summer. So the time that everyone is actually away and is the most expensive and crowded time to travel. And I was like, no way that my life's going to be that. And that's when I had the idea of starting Boundless Life.
Oh, yeah, I can totally imagine. Wow. I'm so glad you thought about this and started thinking of a way for people to have an alternative because so many people have this problem, right?
Yeah, I think, when you think the term digital nomad, you always think about like a single person or someone dating, but without kids. And you're backpacking, in Southeast Asia and working from a cafe. And this is like the initial idea at how digital nomad started. But then like this has been happening for a number of years. And then now digital nomads have kids. And it's really hard to say, oh, I enjoy this incredible lifestyle from I'm 20 until I'm 35, and now I'm gonna settle in one place until I'm 60. So it's really like a really difficult thing, and many families I don't want to do that. And that's what we realized in 2.5 years of running Boundless. There's many families like mine that don't want to settle in one place, don't want to really be stuck.
Absolutely. And I know that, remote work has really changed since the pandemic. More and more people, both partners can work remotely. And it's like, why should we have to still stay in one place? And so can I ask you, how did you tackle this challenge? We would love to hear how Boundless Life works.
Yeah, so for sure. So like you mentioned, the pandemic was a catalyst for families to realize and for companies to realize that people can get work done anywhere. Because before was about 5% of the population and mostly software engineers and designers that could do it. But then it's expanded to many, many different positions and people realize you can be really productive anywhere. So but the pandemic was also a catalyst for many parents to realize that education has not evolved anyways in the last 30 years. So even for myself, when like we bought a house in Montreal in this really nice neighborhood, the school was rated top 4 in Canada. When you went to see what they were actually teaching, there was no difference from when I was a kid. So that education system is very outdated. It's not preparing kids for the future. is really creating this bubble. And during the pandemic, because you were more aware of what your kids were learning, because you're doing online school or you're bringing homework, you're responsible for part of your kids' education when the schools were closed, many parents opened their eyes to see that the education system is really broken. And then the same thing happened to us. So my wife and I were like, we want something better, and for us to have this lifestyle where we are able to continue seeing the world and really expose our kids to different cultures, different ways of living, different climate. So we really wanted our kids from early age to really see the world how it is. We needed to create a new education system that is not attached to a location, but still allow families to travel, but get a very high quality of education and not compromise on their future. Because obviously you can, maybe if your kid is 10 years old, you can put them online school, but then you miss all the socialization aspect. But then if you put them in one school in one country and they move to another one, there's no consistency. If you homeschool them, it's not for everybody. It's really difficult. And then you when you try to homeschool your kids, you realize how valuable is the work of educators and how hard that job is. So we're creating a flexible education system that enable parents to move between locations while keeping the quality. And the main innovation is having modules, what we call cohorts. And each cohort, the kids are working a project. And the project is based on the United Nations Sustainability Goals. So there are 16 of them. And let's say the kids are working on clean water and sanitation. So you're living, in a Greek island, you go visit the plant that cleans all the water. You visit the desalination plants because you realize that they don't have rivers or lakes. So you learn about all of these problems by that location. Then you go to Bali, the kids are doing that to learn about like all the garbage collection and how the mangrove is polluted and how does impact the water. And it's really a hands-on learning and gives the kids the opportunity to work on those projects and to learn the subjects within the project, which is the most engaging way to learn for any kid.
Yeah, this is what's called experiential learning, right? I imagine that
Exactly.
you're combining all the subjects you would normally learn. Like, so instead of, okay, let's just learn English and learn how to write essays, you might have to do that, but related to the problem with trash in Bali or these different, projects you said that that they're going to get involved in. Is that kind of how it works? Just combine all the different subjects around this project.
Yeah, we have two pieces that are really key. One is the project-based learning that I just mentioned, and the second piece is personalized learning. So all of the education was designed for every kid to learn the same thing the same day. So if you remember school, like it's like all the kids are looking at this teacher on the whiteboard or the green board or blackboard, depending where you grew up, writing the same math. But some kids are way more advanced. Some kids are like not catching up yet that topic, and it's really not personalized. But everyone knows that every person is different. And the same applies to kids, especially if you take a 7 years old and a 7 years old and 11 months. Like they're sitting in the same class, but they're 11 months apart, and that's like 15% in difference in terms of life. And for a kid, that's a huge difference. So they should not be learning the same thing. And for us, what we do is we assess the kids in reading and English level, in math level, and then they work on their own personalized work together. So they should have the socialization, but all the learning is personalized for each kid to their level, and they're not really failing because they're behind or not catching as much as the kid that is 11 months older than them. So the personalized learning is a key component combine it with the project, which allows you to have this mobility and continue your education, across different locations around the world.
I really love that you're making sure, and I think it's a game changer, like the socialization side of it, because, if you want to learn on your own, I always want to ask my, fellow student, hey, what did you get for this answer? What do you think about this part of the project? And, if you're just being homeschooled in a silo with your parents or, just doing everything online yourself, then yeah, you don't get that experience. And that's really valuable.
Yeah, and in a world that is transforming so fast with AI, with like jobs appearing, jobs disappearing, it's really about how we connect to each other and how we can navigate different problems and figure out solutions. So that's really what we're looking to build on the kids, is really like social emotional learning. So it's very key nowadays. It's like, and it is a challenge. Many of your audience have been living around the world. It looks so glamorous, but there is challenges arriving in a new city and not knowing, where to go, where to get help, what is the healthcare, what is the gym that you're going to join, understanding the language and the cultural differences. So then you add, kids to it, it makes it even more complicated. And that's the second part of Boundless, is really creating this very good community and locals that work for our team, and they help the family settle. So quickly you can feel at home, you can navigate the culture, and you can really start being productive and enjoying your time while you're traveling.
So important, and connecting with the locals, like you said. How long do the families usually stay in one place with Boundless? So, for example, Greece that you mentioned.
Yeah, so the cohorts are worked in a way that every family arrives at the same time. So imagine like a cruise ship, like the cruise ship arrive in the port, everyone board, and you go together for that journey. So it's the same thing for Boundless. So we have three cohorts of 3 months. So those 3 months are combined to a 9 month school year. So many families will say, I'm going to do a full year off. I'm going to take a sabbatical, a gap year, and I'm going to go around the world with my kids. So your kids start in September and then they go all the way to April. So sorry, all the way until the end of June to do the whole school year with us. And that's like a really big chunk of our families. There are like needing to take a time away and want to go. And then also, if you're not ready to do this, because this requires, taking your kid out of the local school, maybe renting your house, maybe selling some of your things. So some families are not ready for this. We have a 1 month trial. It can be the month of July, it can be the month of August or December. So that way, you're basically not sending your kids to a summer camp, or you're not like taking vacation to a resort, and you're just going for a month in a country, and you're going as a family, and you're really enjoying the culture and immersing yourself in Greece and Portugal, in any of our locations.
Is in that 1 month trial, are you giving the kids like a mini project, or it's just strictly to get everybody kind of adjusted to living in a different country and enjoying that?
This 1 month program is mostly focused on two things. One is cultural immersion. So my kids had just done the one in Greece, so they learn how to write in Greek, they learn about Greek mythology, they learn about Greek history. So now my daughter is reading all the books of Greek mythology because she's really interested in that. And then the second is the sports part, like the ECAs. So we are very lucky that, the locations where we operate, there's incredible ECAs that you can do. I'll give you a couple of examples. So in Portugal, surfing is huge. So the kids learn how to surf. In Italy, it's about arts. So all the Renaissance and learning how to paint, visit the museums and see all these amazing things. Greece is about sailing. And then Bali is a mix of like culture, immersion, giving back, and also some surfing. So we look at the different, what that location really has to offer to the kids, so they can really experience and learn something during that time. And and then they feel like, oh, I want to continue doing this. Maybe I'm gonna come back next year for a month, or I'm gonna go home and make some changes to my life, maybe get a remote job so I can do this for a year. And that's what many of our families are looking to do. Last year, over 20% of our summer families converted into a long-term family. So, which is very, it's very good conversion rate.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, one obvious question people might be thinking, I want to ask it, is like, how does your program connect you or connect back into like a local traditional school? So if I was an American and I brought my kids out of my American school, went to Greece for a year, let's say, am I losing that year? Do you know if America would consider, okay, they lost a year of school, or is it just about test taking back into the school you came from? I'm not sure because I don't have children.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. A lot of parents have that concern. You should not lose a year. Like most of the kids that have done this with Boundless, they were ahead. So because we have
Okay.
smaller classrooms, it's a lot of experiential learning. It's really innovative education. So the kids really do better. but there are two things we're doing. We have equivalency. So we can tell you, this year at Boundless, this is all you learn, and this is how it compared to the UK curriculum, the American curriculum, the Canadian curriculum. So you know where your kid is. And then the second part is the day we opened 2.5 years ago, we started the accreditation process. And now we are in the final step of being fully accredited as an international school, which will mean that we recognize like many of the accreditation that we selected is one of the best ones in the world, which means your kid is having this incredible experience, but also this kind of stamp of approval that their education is really valuable and they're not going to be a year behind when they come back home.
That is a game changer. Congratulations. Can't wait to hear that you guys
Thank you.
passed that final
Yeah,
step. Yeah.
yeah, we're really looking forward to that. It'd be amazing.
Yes. Oh, it's great. One thing that is becoming more important in travel is sustainability. How do you incorporate sustainability practices into how you're operating? Because I know some people might say, oh, well, you're all traveling too much. It's bad for the environment, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a great concern. It's one of our values is really not to damage, the local environment or the global environment for that matter. And if you think about the whole concept of boundless, it by itself is already better because we're not sending people for a week to a resort. The biggest consumption, the biggest impact in the environment is the flight. By flying burn a lot of fuel, and that's like where you have the most emissions. And then also the second impact is seasonality. So if you go to very popular places like think Cancun, like they get so many people doing spring break, and then it just gets empty. So they have built this massive hotel capacity. They're not utilizing the whole year. And there's so many places, even Greece where we operate, is designed where everyone goes to Mykonos for 2 weeks per year, and then the rest of the year the infrastructure is closed. So for us, when you design our product, we're like, first of all, we're not a seasonal product. We're gonna bring the same number of families in the high season and low season. So we have this winter in the Greek island, we're gonna have 30 families there. So it's really like adding value to the local economy because they don't need to build new buildings or anything like that. We're also using existing properties. So a lot of, if you think about the industrial revolution, what it did is empty all those small cities and move people to the large cities. So what we're doing is reversing that. So we're taking a lot of abandoned properties, renovating and using that space for the family. So by design, like Boundless is already, eco-friendly. The other thing we look at is the location that don't have very hot summers and very cold winters, because that means you have the AC and heater on the whole time. And we choose startup, and there's a few things that we want to work on regarding like building certifications. We still don't have that, to make sure that our emissions are low. But our families are very conscious about, the ecological impact, and not to mention even the economic impact that we have in the local market by operating there and creating all the jobs. That digital nomads are not spending money just in souvenir shops and restaurants. Their money is spent in the whole economy, and the economic impact is really way more positive as well.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I can tell you've really thought about this across the board. So, for example, you mentioned 30 families coming together, and I am curious, like, are they all together in accommodation that you find for them, or is there flexibility with where they stay, but you're wanting them to stay kind of around a certain location so they can all be social together? How does that work when you do come into the new location?
Yeah, yeah. So our concept was inspired from stories that my grandfather would tell me about this Italian 15-minute village where like you trust your like cheese man and you trust the lady that sells the vegetables, and it's really a close community. You walk everywhere 15 minutes, and that's how we designed the experience. And it's incredible because after a week or two, the locals realize you're not a tourist, you're there, you're living there, and they start asking, oh, you're back again, how long are you here for? "Oh, I'm here for 3 months." And then you build all those relationships, and it's impossible to walk around any of our locations without seeing a familiar face. and that has a very positive impact on your mental health. Because I grew up in Sao Paulo and it's 20 million people, and you don't trust anyone. You don't look at anyone, and you don't say good morning to a person while you're crossing them ever, because it just doesn't happen. But in all our locations is you really become a member of that society. So we allow families to book their own property, but we really encourage them to get their property within a 15 minutes radius from our school or our community hub. So our community hub is where I'm sitting now, is a combination of a small co-working with a place for families to gather. So everything is within 15 minutes. And we do have about 2/3 of the properties are ours, and we operate and manage them. And then 1/3 of families decide to choose their own property, which is fine as well.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. I love that concept of the 15-minute village. And I'm also thinking, this is a different way of travel than most nomads are used to because children are there. And I would love to hear like the way children interact in this 15-minute village, like you mentioned, it just changes the experience. How has traveling for you after you had kids, you're still moving around the world with the kids. How is it different now that you have kids in the way that you interact in local communities?
I think most cultures love children, and you actually get much better treatment. When you go with your kids and they were like, wow, it's just they want to know about you, they want to know about your family. So that's that's really amazing. Most of our locations are really small, and you get to know the locals. I think for my kids, it's been really an incredible eye-opening experience, like to get to know the ice cream lady in Central Portugal, and they get to know them, and you there 3 months, and then a year later we come back and they want to go there, and she remembers them, and it's like they have a grandmother in kind of every city. So it's a really interesting experience. I would say too, like I grew up in a developing country, and I moved into Canada. You don't see, as much poverty. There is still, poverty as well, but like not to the level that you see in developing countries. And for my kids going to, a place like Bali and seeing your children begging, like it brought like, it's a very sad thing for the kids to see, but it is the reality of the world, and it made force us to have conversations to say, look, we are lucky to have access to these things, and we need to value what we have. We need to find a way to help, the local community. And my daughter was asked, why is she asking? What is she asking for? And I had to explain to her the whole, they were the same age, and that's like a really touching moment. And I think more people need to see different situations of life, different cultures, to really understand. And now we live in a world, there's so much polarization. And when you start seeing, like, I have a friend from Israel, but I also have a friend from Palestine. Like, how do you pick sides? Because they're all human, right? And I think one of the goals for Boundless is really to reduce the polarization that we see in the world today.
Yeah, the name of your company, Boundless, it really does encapsulate that, I think. And yeah, it's so powerful. So I'm wondering about if I do apply, let's say I'm really sold now on this, how does it work with getting into the community? Is there an interview process? Like you are carefully selecting families, making sure they're going to fit in to the experience and they understand? Is it difficult to get in? Because it sounds like it's only 30 families, for example, that you bring in at the same time. How is that intake process?
Yeah, so we have all locations open at the same time. We're not like closing them. So at a
Okay.
given time, we now have six locations. So we're gonna have 180 families across the six locations around the world. So it's Portugal was the first one, then Greece, then Italy, then Bali, then Montenegro, where I am today, and then Spain. So it is not extremely difficult, but we do make sure the family is the right fit, and also you make sure that you can serve all your kids. So if you apply, then there is an interview process that is made of two parts. One, you're talking to one of the families that have done Boundless before, that are part of our team, and they're gonna really tell you, like you're moving to a new country. In Bali, you may not be able to drink the water, or there are things that are going to be different in your life that you need to be ready for. And it's really about openness. It's really about accepting other cultures. And we need to make sure the families understand that they're not going to a cruise, they're not going to a five-star resort. It's really an immersive experience. So that's the first part. And then the second part is your kid ready for this? Right. And this is really hard because we're a micro school, right? Our school is only 60 kids. So 30 families, an average of 2 kids per family, and adds to 60. So we don't have the resources that a school with 1,000 kids would have in terms of special needs and all the different supports. So we do a 360 profile of the children with the parents to make sure that they can be really growing and enjoying the experience as much as they should. And that process take a couple of weeks. And then once the families are in, and the experienced boundless, then it's very easy for them to rebook. We have a very high rebooking rate, way over 50%. And that's like really tells that we're in the right path and we're really building a product for the families based on what they really need.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like you've really thought through it. And also that it sounds like you're growing. And I'm wondering what your next locations are. If you could give us a preview, because you told me at the beginning that you are thinking of you scout locations regularly to try to keep building this program.
Yeah, so we started in Europe because it was just easier to set up here. Even though I'm from Latin America, it was like we were not ready for that market yet in the very beginning. But now there's been 2.5 years that we've been operating, we have a lot of demand for Latin America. So I have been looking at all places, and we finally nailed down to two Latin American locations. We have not announced them publicly yet, but I'm very excited, and it's very close to home for me. So it's gonna be incredible. And one of the main requests of families is working on US time zones, right? Even though many of our families are flexible and they can be anywhere in the world, the restriction that some employers impose is, okay, you can go work anywhere, but you need to be 9 to 5, New York hours. And that's like, okay, it's difficult if you're in Portugal, not impossible. You can make it happen. It's really difficult if you're in Bali, right? You're just gonna reverse your day, and then you're tired, and even though your family enjoying and your kids are enjoying, maybe you're not enjoying, and that's like something to consider. So we are opening in Latin America, 2 locations next year. And then we're looking, we have a list of more than 100 places. And the way we open is with our community. So we now have almost 1,000 families part of Boundless, and we survey them. So we said, okay, we're looking at these 10 places. Can you please tell us like which one would you go to? And then based on their feedback, we just go and refine that search and make sure it matches to what the families want.
I can't wait to find out what locations are in Latin America in the future. That's fantastic. And again, of course, like when these places open, that gives the future families and the current ones more places to experience and enjoy and just follow around the world. So, yeah, I'm so excited to hear about everything you're doing with Boundless Life. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mauro. Is
My
there anything
pleasure.
else? Is there anything else that you would like to add before we go?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the main thoughts families have is that, once they have kids, they need to stop enjoying life and they need to count the days for the kids go to university and then they're free again to travel the world. And what I have to say is that like in the last 2.5 years, I've seen hundreds of families that have found a way to continue pursuing whatever dream they have or whatever hobby they have, but also blend their kids in, bring them to participate. And the impact that that has on the kids is just incredible. So our vision is really to open the eyes for any family that have, any interest in learning a new language or a new hobby or being close to their family somewhere in the world or showing their kids the world that they have seen when they were younger. And do not wait until your kids are older. You only have a few summers, a few years that they are with you, and then they're gonna fly to do their own journey and maybe become digital nomads of their own. and you really want to enjoy that time. And we're seeing that, month to month to month, the number of families doing this growing. So we're really excited to keep doing that.
Well, thank you, Mauro, for creating this company and working on a model like this. I really hope more people find out about it and they realize, just like you said, having kids is not, does not have to mean that you have to stop your dreams of travel, and they're going to learn. The kids will learn so much, the parents will learn so much as they go on this journey together.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mauro. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.